Hello and welcome along to the Dads in Business video podcast series with me, Rob Taylor from Dads in Business, where every week to try and support our mission to help dads bring the best of themselves to the workplace and to home, we talk to business leaders, business owners, personal development coaches and experts around the field of leadership and all aspects of business to help offer advice and give a steer on their own experiences, family life, challenges and risks and opportunities that face in their field. This time, I'm delighted that we're joined by Gavin Scott, who is a customer experience professional, published author and podcaster. I think I ticked them all off there, Gavin, but please, over to you. Give us a rundown of what a customer experience professional is and what book did you publish? Give us a bit of a hello before we dive in.
No, first and foremost, Rob, thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you on the podcast. I think it's a great mission to be supporting dads like us and helping them with their development. So when you contacted me and asked me to come on, I was delighted to get a slot. So, thank you. You're doing a great job. I've checked out some of the stuff that you've shared already, and there's definitely some great insights that you're sharing there. In terms of what I do is ultimately, in a nutshell, I help organizations to have great conversations with their customers. Put another way, I help people to have 5-star conversations with their customers, because we know that great conversations result in great outcomes. And I do that by delivering live online learning events via Teams and Zoom and Adobe Connect. And I also deliver face-to-face events, be it in conferences or at hotels or clients' venues up and down the UK. And you mentioned the book. Yeah, I got a book which is called Finding Gold Dust: How to Create Exceptional Customer Experiences, which managed to get to #1 back in December 2020. Got to #1 in 3 categories. So great to be able to say I've got a Christmas #1, Rob, which was fantastic.
Alongside Wham. There you go.
This is it. So, I mean, and I had, like many people listening, I had not an abundance of time, but I had a lot more time than what I was expecting to have back in March 2020 when COVID struck. And I thought, what can I do to make good use of this time? And I've always been someone who's collected my stories that I share to bring some of the concepts to life. And so I just simply transferred those stories into 40 chapters, and after 6.5 weeks we managed to nail the book, which was great. So yeah, that's certainly something I'm particularly proud of. And yeah, I've got a podcast which will soon be 1 year old in March 2022, and I'm up to episode 46 at the moment, and I interview customer experience professionals. They share their journey, their insights, their challenges in an ever-facing customer service landscape.
Wow, busy boy. What's the name of the podcast, Gavin?
It's called the Customer Service Gold Dust Podcast.
There you go. Good stuff. So, wow, you got a lot on, and you've got 3 kids as well. We were chatting just before we press record. It's something we both in common. We both have 3 kids, and one of the things I asked you was, does it get any easier? How did you find that period in lockdown, having the young family to, I guess at their age, they'll have been wanting to go out and do stuff, and I guess you couldn't, but you needed to keep business going. I mean, how was that for you? How was your experience in that?
Yeah, my kids are a little bit older than yours, Rob. And yeah, I must admit, lockdown was a challenge with homeschooling. I mean, my kids are 9, 10. I've got 2 girls, they're 9 and 10, and my son is 14. My son was able to literally spend the whole day in his bedroom on Google Classrooms, I think it was called. So he was, he was taken care of, and he was busy, doing his own thing, which was good. But the girls 8 and 9, it was a bit more of a challenge with them, and so trying to keep them engaged, trying to stop them from wandering onto other activities was certainly a challenge. And what was frustrating for me was that you know, a lot of the stuff that my girls had to do was either driven, you know, by an iPad or a laptop. And so when kids have got iPads and laptops and mobile phones, then it's easy for them to start wandering, you know, with their attention span, and they start looking at other things. So you know, it was a challenge, and certainly running a business as well. I mean, I said to my kids, I give them a bit of a speech about interruptions and the impact that can have on concentration. They probably thought I was a complete dick, but I sat there and I said, you know, as the girls kept coming into my office, you know, every 5 minutes, I stopped and I said, girls, listen, just so you're aware, right? When someone is interrupted, when they're in a piece of work, right? You can't just get your head back in the game straight away. It takes, on average, 15 minutes for someone to get their head back on the game. So as much as I want to spend time with you and help you with this task, right? Each time you come in, that's 15 minutes that's gone, right? And they were like, right, okay, Dad, yeah, whatever. And they disappeared. But it's true, Rob. You know, we when we get interrupted, it takes us a bit of time to get our head back on the game. So I guess I found that a bit of a challenge. It was no fault for my kids, but I felt like it took me a lot longer to get stuff done than what it takes now that the kids are back at school.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's interesting, the 15-minute thing, because you can't get into flow, or you can't get into that deep workplace when there's so many distractions around. And you're right about I've just scribbled it down. It's like a digital catch-22. I have it with my kids as well, because they are screen fiends. They are just all over them. They get phones, they get YouTube, they get this, they get that. And I'll try my hardest, especially during lockdown. It's like, get off your iPad, get off this, or our iPad that they use. They don't have their own yet, but it's get off the iPad, do some schoolwork. Here's the iPad. So you can't win. It's like, I want you to use an iPad for schooling, but stay off that shiny YouTube icon. It's
and I'm probably quite, you know, old-fashioned, you know, as a dad and as parents, me and my wife Amy, you know, we are quite old-fashioned, because I mean, I didn't have a mobile phone up until I was 23, right? And then, you know, we've said to our kids, we're happy to get you a mobile phone when you start big school, okay? And that's what we did with my son Sam. He got a phone when he was 11, and my daughters, they're 9 and 10, and you know, all of their friends have got mobile phones at school. And they're like, you know, Mom, Dad, can we get a phone? And we're like, well, no, you can't. You're too young for a phone. And they're like, well, everyone else has got one. Everyone else has got one. And it's like, wow. I mean, you know, are we the exception to the rule? Or I mean, I don't know. But there's this pressure. You know, when it comes to you know, getting these phones. But you know, we're sticking to the plan. My daughter Lulu, who's 11, next time around, she will get a mobile phone. And then Maddie, when she's 11, she'll get a mobile phone, but not before.
This is it. And there's all sorts of risks associated to it. Obviously, that goes without saying. But for me, it's about kids. We're talking about sound like grumpy old men here, but it's like, for me, it's like kids going out and actually engaging with humans and doing things and learning and falling over and scraping their knees and just running around a park and doing stuff. But all they seem to want to do is this on a screen. And even at my age, my youngest 3.5, he's still playing with stuff, but the middle one and the oldest one are just mad on screens. I think I've been doing a lot of reading around different generational attitudes, and I guess they're just falling into their type. It's what they do. They're, digital natives. They've grown up with all this abundance of everything, and they're playing to form, aren't they? And I've really noticed that recently I've started having to catch myself sort of saying, I never used to do that. Don't do that because I never did it. And we just can't. We have to allow them to breathe into that space, I guess. But it's fraught.
Yeah, it's true, and it is a challenge because we've different generations, and you know, for us, you know, it's technology, but for them, it's life. Yeah. And I remember watching that video on YouTube called "Look Up," and that just talks about how we miss so much opportunity because we have our head down looking at our mobile phones. And you know, in the past, when I first left the corporate world, Rob, I did work with kids, helping them to get better exam results. And one of the things I remember, and this was back in, I don't know, 2009, is remember going into the staff room at school one day, and there was a kid, and he had to sit in the staff room, and he was told every time a teacher walks into the staff room, we want you to make conversation with them. And I said, what's the reason why this kid's over here, doing this? And the response at the time was, he's on his computer gaming all of the time. He's lost the ability to converse. And so what we're trying to do is just get him to talk more with people, right? And he couldn't do it. He couldn't even interact and engage and say, hello, good morning, what lesson have you just been teaching? And so yeah, like you, I want to make sure that my kids, when it comes to the stuff that I do on customer service, I talk about great conversations all of the time. So I want to make sure my kids can have great conversations. And so, when they go to the doctors and when they're ever faced with someone in authority, I always let them lead the conversation, right? And not speak for them, tell the doctor what's wrong with you, Lulu, what's going on at the moment. I want them to be able to engage in those sort of conversations. And, the world is changing. We get a bit frustrated with that, but ultimately, people still need to be able to talk to people, right? And so, that's what I want to make sure that I instill in my kids, and it sounds like you're doing the same thing with yours.
Well, we've got to try, haven't we? We have to try, and I suppose we should talk about business as well. And obviously, your work through customer experience and therefore, I guess, customer service that falls within that. I guess, as consumers, we can't step away from the impact that digital also has on us as consumers, and by default, therefore, on organizations. I guess from my perspective, from more of a sales and marketing lens, we see a lot of larger organizations struggling to catch up, struggling to adopt, they're struggling to appreciate that the way that their buyers are buying has changed and probably won't go back. So there's some real hurdles there. And I just wonder if what big changes have you noticed in the customer experience, customer service space that are perhaps causing the biggest issues or the biggest challenges for organizations? And I guess on the flip side of that, what opportunities have you seen emerge over the past 2 years or longer?
I mean, there's a couple of things that link in with what you've just shared there, Rob, because, lots of organizations invest heavily in sales and marketing, right? And that's what they do. They want to get more customers on board. So they go fishing, for big fish. And so lots of money gets pumped into sales and marketing. But what I notice is that they don't invest enough in customer service. So, you can get some big fish into the keep net, but if you're not looking after your customer service, they just disappear, right? There's a massive hole in the net. So those companies who invest in customer service and really focus on making sure that they provide great service and overall a great experience for the customers, they're the companies that are smashing it out of the park. They've got loyal customers, they've got customers who spend more money, and they've got customers who recommend you to their family and friends. So that's one aspect of it. And when you think about COVID, the customer service landscape has changed dramatically over the last 24 months or 23 months, whatever it might be, 23 months. It's changed dramatically in the last 23 months, more so in the previous 10 years, because, customers want a more human interaction, right? And it's driven by companies like Amazon who do things quickly. They personalize the experience and they just make it feel easy, and I don't know about you, Rob, but I was using Amazon pretty much every day during lockdown, right?
I know some that were using it multiple times a day.
Exactly. But we get used to that service, that speed, that ease, that personalization, and the way Amazon personalizes the service is they say to you, people who bought this also bought this. Do you want one? Yeah, that's how they personalize it. But we're used to next day or same day. And so when you get to a company that says we'll reply to you within 14 days, you're like, what? 14 days?
Yeah.
What the hell's all that about? Or a ticket's been generated for you, we'll usually respond within 28 days. It's like, really? So what opportunities the companies have today, well, what can we learn from Amazon? You know, I would say, what can you do to make the experience feel easier, right? And that's about the language that you use when you interact and engage with your customers. It's about the speed within which you provide the service. It's about how you deal with complaints and see them as an opportunity. I mean, Amazon, if you've got an issue and there's something not quite right, Rob, you've gone a chat box and you say that this isn't right. And they say, fine, we'll send you another one. And you're like, really? And it's there the next day. So, you know, you've got to be responsive, but we've got to think about how we personalize that experience. And okay, you know, Amazon, they say people who bought this also bought this. But for, you know, for face-to-face customer service or customer service over the phone, I mean, how can you use the customer's name more? Little things like that. How can you remember some of the bits of personal information they shared during the conversation and use that later on? So, you know, there's lots of simple things that will make a difference. But if you focus on ease, speed, and personalization, you're not going to go far wrong in the current climate.
And I guess that suggests, Gavin, that customer service isn't a department, it's more of a culture, or there's more of a, yeah, Amazon call it customer centricity, don't they? That everything that they do has the customer's ease, speed, convenience, I guess, in mind. What prevents organizations? Because we did some work with a company last year, and it was a national team. And it's one major transaction. Once that's done, great. There was one person responsible for customer service. There was one person who was the customer service manager, and that was it. And they were getting complaints, and they were getting issues that weren't getting resolved because obviously one person can't deal with all that for a national organization. And then wondering why future sales weren't happening or the reputation was terrible, because, you know, we all know the power of reviews, and that purchasing pretty much in any industry starts online through third-party review. So the power of delivering good customer service shouldn't be overlooked, should it? So what prevents that happening, do you think?
You know, and going back to what you said earlier on, what prevents that from happening is that, you know, you're right. You know, there's a great quote that says something along the lines of, you know, customer service is not a department, customer service is not a team, you know, customer service is a mindset. You know, it's how you show up. And you got to have a mindset of wanting to be able to deliver an experience that customers are going to talk about, they're going to share, they're going to write reviews about, they're going to come back as a result of that experience. So, and that all starts here. And, you know, many people who work in customer service probably don't actually like speaking to people. They don't enjoy engaging with individuals and other human beings. And so, you know, it's probably not the best place for them to have a role. So, and what prevents, you know, organizations, you know, from delivering great customer experiences is because they probably don't invest enough, you know, and they don't help everyone in the organization to recognize that we can all have a contribution here when it comes to the overall experience that we provide. You know, and it's, you know, it's important to mark out the difference between customer service and customer experience, because, you know, often they're mentioned in the same sentence. But customer service, that's more reactive. So that's how you respond to an email, a web chat, a WhatsApp, a phone call. So a situation arises and you respond. So it's more reactive. That's customer service. Customer experience is the entire journey, from the website to the interaction with the sales guide, to the product arriving, to it working, to the after sales customer service. You know, that's the customer experience is how you make the customer feel throughout that entire journey. And that's more proactive. And so you got to think about, okay, how can we make sure that we create these, you know, we look at the journey and think about these moments of truth where we can absolutely make the experience shine for our customers. And companies who look at that are making great progress.
I really like that differentiator between customer experience and customer service. Like the customer service is a function, moment in time. Customer experience is the whole lot. We talked to a lot of smaller businesses in one of the projects I work on, and we always challenge them to say, where does customer service start? And these are tradespeople, and they're 9 times out of 10 when they're new to it, they're like, well, I'll turn up on time, or I'll wear overshoes when I'm visiting, or I'll smile when I'm there. I'm like, that's great when you're there, but what's the customer done beforehand to make that a good representation of you, so that they expect what's going to happen when you knock on the door? Because that one window of time is only one of several touch points, I guess, from a wider experience.
This is exactly, that's it. So that moment in time when they knock on the customer's door, they're going to provide a level of service, but those interactions before and after, that shapes the overall experience that the customer feels, and that's what, you know, people will need to think about. And it's even I talk about something called play from a 10. So before you even knock on the door, you know, in terms of your mindset, are you in the right space to provide that customer with the best service possible? So are you playing from a 10, right? Because if you're taking some baggage from a previous interaction or a previous customer visit into this next interaction, then that's not fair on that customer. So you got to be able to compartmentalize what's going on in your world, being able to put that excess baggage to one side and go, okay, right, let's play from a 10, showtime, let's make it happen. Here's the next customer. Let's give them the best service possible.
Absolutely. And I think I was just thinking there while you were sharing that. Do you think customers have got more needy? Have customers got more demanding because there's more choice? Because of, like we're talking about with the digital natives and the digital savvy and the tech savvy, we expect automatic response. We expect immediacy. We expect personalization. Are we setting the bar too high, you think, as consumers?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned, you know, we live in a review economy, right? You know, and 10 or 15 years ago, there wasn't really an option to do that. And so they probably have more options in terms of what they can do if they don't get a service that they expect and deserve. So they've probably got a bit more power today than what they used to have, and they've got other companies who are doing it well, and so therefore there's an expectation that others can do it in the same way. And when they, you know, when they're using these companies who are absolutely smashing it out of the park, then when someone falls below par a little bit, it's like, wow, that wasn't great. What was all that about? You know, I'm going to write a review about them because they were rubbish. And we have to remember as well that, you know, as a human race, we're very good at focusing on the negatives. And, you know, it's important to make sure that, you know, we do the very best that we can to try and create an experience that just feels easy and effortless, so that customers want to write about it. Because the moment you make a mistake, they'll be like, all right, that's it, I'm going to write a review. They're rubbish.
I'm going to take you to task. That's it. You're done. I think well, some of the things we often hear is probably similar from the sort of clients that you work with. Is some of the hesitation can be, it's not like that in our industry, or it's different in our industry, or it's going back to how it used to be. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine. And for me, and you mentioned something there, don't as customers we almost compare every business to Amazon. Yeah. Or to the ones who are the best at what they do, no matter what the field is. So in a way, you saying or assuming it's different in our industry, the experience is different. The expectations are that of Amazon, for example, the bastion of customer service. So I guess we have to look beyond our industry and look outside, don't we? From where we are.
Because it doesn't matter what industry that you're in, your customers will be comparing you to organizations that do customer service really well. And I think people who say it's different for us, or you know, individuals that say it's different in our sector or in our field, I think, you know, but to be controversial, they're probably being quite lazy and making excuses. in my opinion. Okay, because customers will be comparing you to other industries and other sectors, and so as much as it pains me to say, if you focus your attention on being just like Amazon, then you won't go far wrong, regardless of what sector you're in.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I think it's that view of it doesn't work like that in our industry. It isn't really putting the customer first, is it? It's putting their own behaviours and sensitivities.
Yeah,
potentially.
And where's that information coming from? Is that coming from customer feedback? Is that coming from the voice of the customer? Is that just coming from your intuition?
Yeah,
if it's not based on hard data or hard facts, then maybe you need to think about some other alternative solutions that you can look to implement to make it better.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, says who should be the response. Yeah. Gavin, one of the things that winds me up, and I'm going to have a vent about customer service, maybe you can help, is the COVID excuse. I don't know if you've experienced it yourself, but I once had a rant about, there was a post office, I think was one of them, a bank, which I won't name them, but the bank that I'm no longer with anymore. Insurance has been one, car insurance has been another one, where you phone them up or you visit the post office and they don't want to speak to you. They just say, due to COVID, we want you to go to the website. Due to COVID, we've built an FAQ. Due to COVID, and I understand for the first 3 months or whatever, it was probably a bit of a shock to the system for everyone. But as you said earlier, we're 23 months into this now. Haven't companies had enough time to adapt to not use the due to COVID line? Where do you stand with that from your experiences in the field?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think, as a result of COVID, many organizations have had what I've heard, a digital leapfrog, right, in terms of what they can now do online. And I think many organizations are opting for self-serve, and that's going to work for certain groups of individuals. And certain groups are happy to go down the self-serve option, which is perfectly fine. So they're providing that for a certain generation of individuals. But you're right in terms of the length of time it's been, and organizations still using COVID as an excuse for lengthy delays in getting through, and using COVID and asking you to go online. It's been a long time we've been going through this, and therefore, what was the contingency plan for this sort of situation? So we have to also recognize that it takes time to get people to be skilled at dealing with customer service queries. Certainly, on the telephone, to be able to have an engaging conversation with someone is not easy. So that takes some training. There's a shortage ultimately when it comes to employees who want to work in that area. So that's a bit of a challenge. But I think, too many companies, are trying to take us down the self-serve option and not providing us with a phone number on their website. And ultimately, there's a lot of people out there that just want to have a conversation, right? And that's where the frustration is. And you can end up going around in endless loops, trying to find out, okay, where's the option where I can actually speak to somebody, right? I've tried that and that one cuts me off. I've tried that one cuts me off. I've tried this one and it just goes to an automated voice response. And we do get frustrated and you think, okay, I just want to speak to somebody, right? I want to speak to someone. I had a similar situation recently when I was trying to get a replacement remote control. And I spent about 5 days on it, Rob. Until eventually I thought, right, I'm going to get this sorted out, because I've tried all these different things, been sent down these different options, and my TV is still not working, and my wife and kids are not happy. So I eventually got it sorted out. But I'm just trying to think now. I managed to, I think I went through, it was still a self-serve option. I think it was through my app. that I managed to get the replacement remote control, but it was delivered the next day and it did work. But I didn't speak to anybody.
Yeah, it was a self-serve.
It was a self-serve.
Not for lack of trying to speak to someone. I think my record for the bank that I mentioned earlier was I was trying to sort something out. I was on hold and I was taking screenshots of it. It was 90 minutes on hold, then it was 2 hours on hold, then it was 2.5 hours. It ended up being 2.5 hours. Someone answered, "Oh, this is the wrong department." Let me put you through. And they bumped me right back to the beginning of the process again. And it was another 1.5 hours before I actually
that's not great. And in those situations, I think organizations should be saying, Mr. Taylor, you've come through to the wrong department, but listen, my name's Gavin. I'm going to get this sorted out for you. I'm going to make sure that we put you to the head of the queue, and I'll tell them exactly what the issue is and make sure that they know exactly what's going on for you. How does that sound? Sounds great. The person's not been able to help you, but you feel as though you're in safe hands in that moment, and you're not going to just get whacked into the queue and start again.
Yeah, it's painful. I mean, there are companies I think that are doing it well in terms of the self-serve. I'll say the good ones. I bank with Starling, and I tell everyone I meet I bank with Starling because they make it so easy. In terms of the self-serve, I set a bank account up using my phone. Brilliant. If I want to speak to someone, I can get in touch. And guess what? They get back to you very quickly. They'll say, here's some prompts on a chat. But if you want to speak to someone, you can say, I want to speak to someone, and you can. And they resolve issues very, very quickly. And I think larger global banks, is it a bit like steering the Titanic, do you think, where small changes don't really affect the general direction, but these smaller disruptive companies in these industries can do things quicker, better. They're not afraid to take risks that are going to really disrupt for a long time to come, do you think?
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, I do bank with Starling myself. They're one of the banks that I use. And like you, Rob, the experience is very positive. And yeah, maybe some of these bigger organizations are like that super tanker that takes a little bit of time to turn a corner. And some of these disruptive businesses are a little bit more like speedboats. They can adjust, they're a bit more agile, they can adapt and change quickly. And that ultimately is going to benefit the customer experience. So
well, that's it. And if that's what customers want, they responded to me, they made it easy for me, it was quick. These super tankers need to speed up their turning because they're going to get left behind. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And if you think about some of the older businesses and businesses been around for some time, they've got a certain culture, haven't they? And you'll know, culture takes time to change, especially when you've got a large cohort of people.
Yeah, I think it comes a lot down to leadership and the desire and understanding, which probably goes back to your mindset point earlier. I wondered who you'd seen in the past 2 years or even longer historically. We've mentioned Amazon a few times, so try not to reference them again if you can. Who's nailed customer service, customer experience? Who's doing it really well? And what can smaller businesses or organizations watching? Who should they be watching to learn from in terms of best practice?
Well, I mean, when talking about banks, there's certainly an experience that I had, with my bank, and it was Barclays Bank, and it was a positive experience that happened in the last 2 years. We went into the bank and to pay in a check. One of my clients paid me by a check, which is don't get very often, but they did. So we had a trip down to the bank before I could pay it in over my app, and we went to the bank. We went to the counter, and as we got there, the lady was like, "Hi, how can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I want to pay in a check." And then my 3 kids were there. She was, and who have we got here? And the kids were like, "I'm Maddie, I'm Lulu, and I'm Sam." Lovely names. I've got a daughter called Maddie, she said. So instant connection with my younger daughter, right? Then she started to process the check and she says, oh, Loaf Trading Limited, what a great name for a company. Where did that come from? So, she gave me a bit of a compliment. We were talking about that. And at the end of it, and it was only a short interaction, she simply said, okay, now your dad's got some money in his account, kids. You can go and get yourself an ice cream, because it was in the middle of summer. And it was like, okay, that was a great experience, or great service that I certainly enjoyed. And that was Barclays Bank in Doncaster. Absolutely nailed it. Had a recent experience when my Dyson Hoover broke down, and a guy came to fix the Hoover. He knocked on the door, and as I opened the door, he showed his card, and he introduced himself, and he said to me, "Where's the patient?" And I was like, looking behind me going, the patient? What are you talking? Do you mean the Hoover? He says, yes, the patient that needs to be repaired. I was like, it's under the stairs, mate. I says, come in, and he came in, Rob, and he put this towel on the floor. And I came out with my Dyson Hoover, and he pretty much cradled it like a baby and placed it on the floor. And he was operating on my Hoover like it was a human being. I mean, me and my wife were just fascinated by it. And he just clearly loved his job. And again, that was another great experience. So, there's a couple that stand out. So I've got Dyson Hoovers there. I've got Barclays Bank. You've got companies like Apple, who are absolutely smashing it out of the park. I've had some great experiences with Premier Inns recently. But I get that it can depend on the individual, right? It can depend on the individual. And I'm sure that for some of those companies that I've mentioned, other listeners are maybe thinking, well, I had a really bad experience with X, Y, and Z. So it can depend on the individual who you're interacting with. So.
It's interesting you picked out two examples which were both human interactions. They were both real life interactions. Interesting point where you picked up on their character and what they remembered about you, or what they said about you, to make themselves familiar and get that connection. And I guess that's the challenge of digital, potentially, isn't it? That it's harder to get that across.
It is. And I think, there's always going to be a place for human interaction. And I think the human interaction, that's what's going to create a feeling, isn't it? I don't get, much of a positive feeling when I'm interacting and engaging online. It's a case of, okay, that was done. I'm satisfied with the outcome. Whereas with a human being, there's more connection, there's more feeling. Therefore, it feels like a better experience when it's done well.
Yeah, and I think it's, for me anyway, it's one of the huge opportunities that small businesses got versus larger organizations to this point. Going back to my work with the smallest owner-managed level small businesses. You used to be employed, Gavin. You now work for yourself. It'd be interesting to know a bit about that transition and the risks that or challenges that you faced in that transition. And I guess also how you've personally in your business learned from big organizations to deliver your own small business customer experience. It'd be good to see what that looks like in a sort of tangible sense from the customer experience expert.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working for myself since 2009. When I left the corporate world, I was lucky enough to get a redundancy package. So I had a bit of money to fall back on after my 12 years in the corporate sector. So I had a chance to, well, they say, don't you, if you run out of cash, you run out of time. So I had a good lump of cash to keep me going for a period of time as I started to build the business. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this is when my wife was on maternity leave. I was just starting the business. There was many squeaky bum moments, Rob, where you're thinking, okay, have we got enough money to pay for the mortgage this time? What's coming in? And 2009, the banking crisis. I mean, it was a challenge to get started. But I've always believed that if you're passionate about something, then you will be successful. And I'm passionate about customer service and the customer experience, and I'm in a far better position now than what I was 13 years ago, but it's taken a long time. Would I go back to the corporate sector? no, I would never do that. Yeah, I'm totally happy doing my own thing. And that gives me freedom, flexibility, work-life balance, all the things that I value, time with the family, all that stuff. I'm not, on the rat race like I probably was when I was in the corporate world. So, I enjoy that freedom. There's things that I've learned from, organizations when it comes to the service they provide, certainly things not to do. And certainly things that I can do that I've liked. And I think, okay, that's really good in terms of what you've done there. So I do things like, giving a little bit of occasional surprise where I can to my clients, do things that they didn't expect, add that little bit of extra value to the interaction or to the event or to the engagement with them, remembering little bits of information about them. I call it the gold dust, and I make notes of that stuff and then use that information later on where I can, just to make them think, wow, that guy was really listening to me. I like him, because when it comes to what we do, you don't know when that client's going to become a client. It might be in 2 weeks. It might be in 2 years. It might not ever happen. But you've got to think about every interaction as an opportunity to showcase, how you are as an individual, and what you're like as a human being. And so, yeah. That's the sort of approach that I take. just to have a bit of fun and just be, just not be this perfect robotic individual, but just, make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, and try and enjoy the ride, smile a lot, say I cocked up there, hands up on many occasions, but I'll sort it out for you. And yeah, just give massive value to the clients who I come into contact with. And I found that when I work in a business, like let's say I work in a large business, a large corporate, delivering some of my events, then what you find, Rob, is that these people leave and they move on to other organizations. And then they're looking for someone to do customer experience or customer service. They phone Gavin Scott. And it's like, wow. Before you think to yourself, yeah, I don't know who you know, and I don't know when you're going to move, but right here, right now, you're going to get the best version of me. Right.
Does it start with a 10? I think you said,
play from a 10, and that's it. And the amount of people that said, Gav, I used to work at so-and-so, but now I'm working here. Can we have a conversation about that? I'm like, yeah. I mean, wow. Well done to you, first and foremost, for getting that promotion into this big organization. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and I think, you can tell how much more fun you have working for yourself than a corporate. I think that's the benefit and opportunity we have as tiny businesses, micro businesses, is we can be personable. We don't have the resources to employ customer service teams. We are the customer service department. We are the operations. We're everything. And I think that shines through. And I think that is our unfair advantage in a way, because large corporates don't have that.
No, they don't. And what is important is that you build a good team around you, not necessarily a team of people who work for you, but I've got a graphic designer who helps with some design stuff. I've got an illustrator who does all of my hand-drawn visuals. I've got an accountant. I've had a personal relationship for a good number of years. I've got associates who I know who can support me and help me should I need to deliver a few events at the same time. So you build that team around you. I think people refer to it as a power team, but you need to have the right people close by, and you got to look after them.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate in collaboration and those collaborative relationships. And well, yes, we don't take on internal staff like you. We have a designer, we have a printer, we'll have web person, we'll have people who we trust to make this greater than the sum of its parts, by using individuals who are as passionate about what they do as we are about what we do, and together it creates some special stuff, doesn't it?
I pay them quickly as well.
Yeah. Another advantage of being a small business.
I pay them quickly, because when I know that there'll be a point where I come to them and I say, can you get this done for me? When do you need it by, Gav? tomorrow.
Yeah. In true Amazon style, I need you to deliver tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
I'm just panicking, Rob, because I think my kids, some of them might be on the Wi-Fi, so I might be dropping out a little bit, so forgive me for that.
All right, you did for a moment. We'll be wrapping up in a few moments anyway. It's the trials of real life. Eh?
They're on their iPad. See, this is it.
They're doing schoolwork, Gav. That's the. Oh dear. I just want to, if we could squeeze in before we start to wrap up and send some tips for those that might be watching. A big part of what we share with our methodology is about that dad life sort of falls into four main parts. We have our work or business life, we have our money life, we have our family life, and we have our self. And often it's the self that goes first, because we used to have a hobby. I used to go out with friends. I used to do this and used to do that. Now, I know that you're a bit of a football referee. Yeah. And what a challenging hobby to put yourself in front of that lot on a Saturday afternoon. But I guess on a serious note, I'd love to know how important it is for you to keep in with that, to find that space and time for you. A bit about your sort of personal routine to make sure that you can go with that, start from a 10 position in work, and sort of boundary management, I guess, in a way. How do you find the time for you? The power of that hobby, habit, whatever you want to call it. And what's a bit of your routine? It'd be nice to know a bit around that in terms of how you can juggle those different roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, well, there's a few big meaty ones there. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So I remember appearing on a panel a few weeks back, and it was about time management. And someone asked me a question and said, what's the best way to manage your time, right? And my response was, make time for you. And they were like, what? I says, make time for you. That's the best way to manage your time. So what do? Me and my wife, every morning, we do a workout in the garage. It's a Nike, we got the Nike training app. We do a 15, 20, 25, 30-minute workout without fail, 6:30 in the morning. We do that, okay? Just to get the juices flowing. We always walk the kids to school, right? So it's a 10 or 15-minute walk there and back. It just, makes sure, get the mind clear, get the juices flowing, get us starting thinking about the day ahead. So we make time for ourselves doing that as well. Where we can, we go for walks during the day, lunch hour, have a bit of a 15, 20 minutes, nip down to Sainsbury's, get some bits and bobs. But again, another refresh there as well helps you. The refereeing, I'm probably refereeing not too far from you. I'm in the Sheffield County Senior League. I was doing Ecclesfield Red Rose on Saturday versus Houghton, what that is for me is just that total release where I'm not thinking about work. I'm on the football pitch. I'm keeping fit, and I'm just trying to manage 22 players and just stop them from kicking lumps out of each other. And I enjoy that. I mean, I'm 46 now, so I like to keep fit. And 10 years ago, I was a referee, and I stopped when my third daughter arrived. And then just last year, I said to my wife, "You got to have a supportive wife as well. That my wife Amy is crucially important. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work." And I said to my wife, "Listen, I wouldn't mind trying to give this refereeing a go." And she says, "Well, you know what? You're not working away all the time now. You do a lot more of your stuff online. You're here during the week. So if you want to have a run around on a Saturday afternoon, Gav, I'm good with that." And I was like, brilliant. So that's just my way of just that release and that just getting the heart rate going. And I love it. I love it. I mean, I take a lot of stick, and some games go better than others. But more often than not, because I'm fit enough, I'm never too far away from the ball, so I get most decisions right, Rob. And I'm aiming to get my promotion back to where I was 10 years ago, and that's what the plan is there. So that's all good. So yeah, make time for yourself. That's massively important. Have a good wife or a good partner who supports you, whether it's a husband, wife, or someone else. Whatever your situation is, you've got to have a good team, haven't you?
No, it's true. Yeah, we can so easily think of our team from a business sense, designer, web person, this, that, that. But our team at home is vitally important. And I think sometimes we just assume that we can't ask because, oh, I need to be at home for the kids, or I should be over here, or I should be over there. But if you can just make that agreement and expectations, I think actually, my wife's not too bad overall. She will say yes as long as it's balanced. It's fine.
It's a bit of give and take, isn't it, Rob? That's
absolutely
what you got to do.
Absolutely. It's vital, absolutely vital. And interesting you say you're fit enough to still run around a football pitch. With those sort of teams you're refereeing, hopefully it's fit enough to run away from them as well.
I've had a few close encounters, but so far my face isn't quite one that says punch me, because I've not been punched yet. I've got close.
Brilliant. Listen, Gavin, I'm conscious of time and your kids using the iPad. So I guess just to get it back onto a business customer experience focus and to try and give some takeaways for the listeners. There's been lots of tidbits and takeaways throughout, but I know you have a series called the Thursday Threes. So in keeping with that sort of theme and series, I wonder if you had 3 quick tips for businesses that are wanting to improve their customer service or readdress their customer experience. What would you say they can do?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. I would first of all say adopt a good listening system. What do I mean by that? Learn to listen to what your customers have to say. Sometimes we listen to speak and we don't listen to hear. So spend time adopting the right listening system and really tune into the words, the emotions, and the requirements of your customers. Tip number 2, once you do that, you're naturally demonstrating more interest in them. And when you become more interested in them, they will naturally become more interested in you. So listen hard, demonstrate interest, then you have a more engaged customer. And then doing both of those things, what you can then do is give that little bit of occasional surprise, right? So, I know from a brief conversation that we've had prior to this, that you're a Blades fan, Rob, okay? So, I might think about, 6 months, if I was engaging with you as a client, if I see a great result from you, Sheffield United, I'll send you a quick message. Hey, great result of the weekend, Rob. Were you there? Fucking, how did he remember that? Pardon, and just went off kilt then. How did he remember that? So listen hard, demonstrate interest, and then use the personal information that you get to give that little bit of occasional surprise. So there's 3 things for you right there.
Superb. See, just like that. An unprompted question as well. So thank you for being on the spot with that one. Fantastic. Okay. Listen, Gavin, where can people get in touch? How can we find you? Your podcast, your book, you on LinkedIn. So where are we at?
If you want to have a good read, then by all means go onto Amazon and you search for Finding Gold Dust, and it'd be great if people could get a copy of that. If you're interested in listening to podcasts, be it in the car or when you're going for walks or runs, then just search for the Customer Service Gold Dust podcast in any good podcast app. If you want to get some free content, so some free customer service top tips, then go to the website www.gavinscott.me. And any businesses who are on LinkedIn, let's get connected and let's engage in a conversation. You'll be able to see details of my Thursday Threes that Rob's mentioned, and the weekly podcast series goes out live via that platform.
Superb. Nice one. So you're everywhere.
Well, I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
Brilliant. Gavin Scott, thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy your evening. Get the kids off the iPad.
Yes, you do the same, Rob. Great to chat, mate, and good work, yeah?
Take care.